For those that haven't met her yet, though I know many of you did via email, we are really excited to welcome Mary Dutton to the CFMC team. Mary's been with us 3 weeks now, almost 3 weeks now. So we're really excited to have her, and we're looking forward to you having opportunities to get to know Mary. So thanks for joining the CFMC team, Mary.
Thank you for the welcome, and excited to be here.
And I would like to introduce Tom Gizzo, who is a member of our board of directors and is the chair of the Janvrin Fund Committee. And Tom, thank you for joining us today.
Great, thanks, Thayer. A lot of thank yous this morning. Thank you all for coming out for the information session and for the good work that you do in the community and for the environment. This is our first pilot for the Janvrin Fund. And but we have been active, and we have sprinkled some money around to some great projects so far. We owe a gratitude to Mary Janvrin and Natalie Janvrin Wiggins and their generosity for providing us with the funds that we get to dispense with the according to their wishes. And as you saw from the introductory materials of this pilot cycle, we are looking for small grants that have very favorable results in the community and the environment and the enjoyment thereof. The Janvrin sisters were really partial to birds, if that plays into your thinking. But really any environmental projects that improve the landscape and our overall appreciation, and really also looking for opportunities to get people out into nature and to enjoy the rich blessings that we have here in the Connecticut River Valley. So with that, I'll turn the program back over to Thayer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tom. And thanks again for all you do. We really appreciate your work on both the board and the committee. Committee work is a lot of work. It's a lot of fun. It's interesting, and we really appreciate your time. All right, Cynthia, for those that may be new to the Community Foundation, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to meet Cynthia Clegg, our president and CEO. Cynthia, any other thoughts as we get started here?
Just that we look forward to as many good ideas as possible. We know, I'm looking at all the faces and know that you'll come up with some really creative things. So we so appreciate all the good work that you do, no matter what. So thank you very much for being here and taking time on a hot, steamy summer day from near and far.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Okay. So we will get started. Okay. So welcome, and again, thank you so much for joining us today. This is very exciting. We continue to stress this is a pilot application. So we're here to not only provide information as we've developed the ideas out and where we're starting from, but we also know that this is going to be a learning cycle because there are going to be things we hadn't thought of, or questions that might come up, or maybe little challenges we hadn't foreseen. So we appreciate the patience as well as the feedback as we work through this. Now, of course, my computer, there we go. Okay, so we're going to start sort of at the top and work our way down into specifically the Janvrin cycle. One of the things that we've been doing this spring is every year we review our application process, but every so many years, we actually do a very deep dive to the application process. We review what our process looks like, and we reach out to fellow sister community foundations of similar makeup to the Community Foundation to see what they're doing, to see if they have any good ideas that we hadn't thought of, or anything that we can borrow, or things that maybe they figured out that work a little bit differently and might help streamline our processes. So one of the things that was recommended to our board of directors in June and was approved is we're actually going to take our annual competitive cycle, which, as many of you know, up to now has been a one-time application opportunity that was offered in the fall. And we're going to actually create 2 application opportunities. We will still refer to our annual process by a hyphenated year. So right now we are entering the 2022-2023 annual process. Our fall application offering, which includes this pilot, is considered the process 1 or application call 1, and then we will launch another after the first of the year, which will be a call for applications 2. So within that process, we refer to the fall as a cycle, and we refer to the spring as a cycle, and that makes the annual application offering. Updates and changes for the CFMC process in general. As I mentioned, we're splitting into 2 calls for application, 2 cycles. This one, each one will include a general funding application opportunity that can go to any of our committees. For our unrestricted fund, that, as many of you know, we have about 8 committees that participate in our competitive application process. So the general funding requests are up to $5,000, and then we are implementing this Janvrin fund pilot into both the fall and the spring, each cycle. And then we also have some other field of interest funds that may have very specific initiatives that they want to examine and see who's working on them. And those would be incorporated into the second call for applications, the spring cycle. For those that in general look at our overall competitive application process, we're launching this information session early, specifically for the Janvrin pilot. We're doing that intentionally because this one is new and we're testing it out, but it is part of the fall cycle. However, you'll also be receiving information for our general information session for the overall competitive cycle coming up probably the beginning of next week, and we'll have those information sessions in early August. The main thing that you need to think about overall as you are not only learning more about the pilot application call that we're doing for the Janvrin Fund, but being part of our annual process, is that if your organization chooses to apply at this time to the pilot Janvrin Fund call for applications, you may not submit an application for general funding or for a completely different program in the fall cycle. So we are still maintaining the 1 application per organization process or expectation that we have held in previous competitive cycles. If your organization applies at this time to the Janvrin Fund, and is awarded a Janvrin Fund grant, you may not apply again to the Janvrin Fund call for applications in the spring, because once again, we're looking at this as the fact that you've received funding for our overall annual applications process, which is just going to have 2 calls for applications now. I hope we've been trying, we know that the term cycle, how to think about it can get a little confusing, because even internally, we have been trying to envision what this looks like and how to explain it externally. So I created this table, which hopefully might help sort of show how we are looking at what we call annual process. Our annual process always refers to how we open the call for applications and do the reviewing. So each year for the fall one, it's what we call a reset, which is we have completed the previous annual process and we're starting all over. So that's how this table is built, to show that for next year in 2023, the call in the spring is still part of our current annual process. But then next fall, when we get ready to launch information sessions again, we're quote unquote resetting and starting again for a brand new annual cycle. And I want to reiterate that this pilot is part of our regular competitive application process. We're just holding this information session separately and launching a little early with a slightly different due date, because it is a pilot and we know that we will be working on, some possible good questions and maybe a little hiccup along the way. So we wanted to make sure we got this launched early. So I'm going to pause for a second, because this may have brought up for us some question and answer ideas that we were going through. You'll see scattered throughout this. We've tried to think of some questions and answers that might be immediately pop to mind as we not only launch a new concept of an annual process for calls for applications, but incorporate the pilot for the Janvrin Fund. So one question as we go forward is, our program is collaborative with 2 or more nonprofits involved. Do we submit one application or make each organization apply to the Janvrin Fund? One organization is the applicant. So you're submitting one application. All the partners can be involved in developing the narrative, and there is a piece at the bottom where we do ask that the partners and collaborators' names be included, that they are aware of our marketing requirements and our non-discrimination policy, but it's one application with one primary applicant as the lead. Another question we brainstormed was, our organization has 2 programs in mind, one that's collaborative and one that's standalone. May we apply for both? At this time, we're asking no. Pick one, please. This is a pilot. We're testing the waters. We're looking to see how this is going to work. So within your organization, if you're the lead applicant, it's looking at what you might be thinking and defining which one at this time you would want to be considered by the committee. Another question that we brainstormed is that there may be 2 programs in mind, one that's collaborative that another organization is going to be the lead on, and they are going to submit that application. So the question is, since yours is standalone and only specific to your organization, could you be a partner on one and apply for another? And we are at this time asking or saying, please, no, don't do that. Again, this is a pilot. We're testing it. We want to see what it looks like. We want to work with you and see what comes through. We want to make sure that we hit any hurdles, et cetera. But if you want to be a partner on one, you will have an opportunity in the spring, if yours is standalone and completely separate, to have that as a consideration for our second half call for application. The other one is, maybe you're brainstorming an idea, but there are really no specifics. There's been no good conversation or strong conversation on all of the pieces that might go in. Maybe there's no timeline yet for the development and implementation. It's just a vague idea. Would you apply now? We definitely encourage new ideas. We encourage imaginative and out-of-the-box thinking. But if it's really still at that just vague up in the ether place where there's really no idea of what it's going to look like or what it would take to implement it, we ask that you hold off and wait for another cycle to submit that application. If you submit, and as all of our competitive application processes in the past have been competitive, the application process is competitive. There are a lot of great ideas out there. There's a lot of need out there. We're very cognizant of that. And so there's no guarantee of funding. So maybe if you apply, and should your application be denied, could you reapply to the Janvrin Fund in the spring of 2023 in the second call for application cycle? Yes, you may. If your organization is a partner on an application, but not the applicant, if you're a partner and the lead applicant does receive Janvrin funding in this cycle, could you apply to the Janvrin fund as a standalone in the next half of the annual process? Yes, you could, as long as it's not related to this application that was funded. It would need to be a completely standalone, separate initiative, project, or program. If your organization receives a grant this fall in the Janvrin process, the pilot application cycle that we're running, could you also apply to the Janvrin in the spring? And again, no, we're seeing this as a full annual process that includes 2 calls for applications. So by receiving an award this fall, we would ask that you not apply to the Janvrin fund specifically in the spring. If you're because many of these may be collaborative partnering, we've tried to think of these partner questions, as you can see. So if your organization is a partner on the application, but not the applicant, could you apply for general funding, our general funding process in the second cycle, which is the spring of 2023? And yes, you could, as long as your application is not related to this pilot fund call for applications, Janvrin call for applications that was awarded. It could not be associated with this. It could not be adding more CFMC funding on top of the award that you have received in this cycle. And the same goes if you're a partner, but now you have I think I did this one twice, maybe. It's just, I did do this one. You could apply to Janvrin in the spring as long as it's standalone and not associated to an application that receives funding in this pilot on which you are a partner. So let's get really into what the call for application looks like for the Mary Janvrin and Natalie Janvrin Wiggins Fund for Birds, Other Animals, and Nature. The primary thing to keep in mind as you're thinking about what you might want to apply for, if you're considering a collaboration, who might you want to bring in, all applications must meet the purpose of the fund, which is to preserve, protect, and steward land, waterways, wildlife habitats for the benefit of our ecosystem, habitats for birds and other wildlife, and the well-being and enjoyment of our region, of our residents and community. That is the criteria that all applications must meet. Normally I hold this until later in a presentation for applications, but I'm going to put it up front because often these become some of the questions that we get later on. So I thought it might be helpful to have it up front. In general, what the Community Foundation, through our application process for all of our funds that participate, what we do not consider granting awards to support are this list right here. It's on our website. It'll be in this. We go through a lot of them, but I want to emphasize a couple of things that are really, really important. First of all, grants directly to individuals. So if you are those are and a single individual that is looking for support for an idea they have, they're not affiliated with a tax exempt entity, it's an individual. We are not able to make grants to individuals. We also do not fund initiatives that use our grant money to then create re-granting opportunities to other organizations. So our grant funding cannot go into a fund that then has its own form of application process or other type of request platform to other organizations. On our website under guidelines, we do have our non-discrimination policy. We hold firm to that not only internally, but it is one of the expectations for a grant agreement for any organization receiving an award, that they too, in their constitution, bylaws, or practices, do not discriminate against a person or a group on the basis of age, race, national origin, ethnicity, gender, disability, sexual orientation or identification, political affiliation, or religious belief. We are continuing to remind applicants to please not apply for new staff positions that came out of the COVID-19 pandemic, or to pay hazard expenses going forward, or to recoup lost revenue. Our funding cannot be used for that. And I think the other most important thing in here is that we do not, all of these are important, let me back that up and say that, but it's really important to point out that our grant funding cannot be used for political or partisan purposes, campaigns, or lobbying. This is very, very important. Also, at this time with this pilot, we're going to get into what the types of applications we would consider and some of the things that we've brainstormed about the pilot. But at this time, we are not accepting land acquisition applications. We do encourage organizations to let us know if the opportunities, because we like to have it on our radar to know what's going on. But this application pilot is not for land acquisition. So your application can be any type of program, project, or service that directly impacts Middlesex County. It could benefit one, several, or all of the 15 towns in our region. It could touch towns and cities outside of our boundaries, but the focus must be impacting Middlesex County. And the cycle is not restricted to what often many people think of as traditional environmental organizations. You might have an opportunity to partner with an arts organization or a social services organization, or you might be a human services organization taking the lead on an application and you're partnering with an environmental organization. We're really encouraging some a lot of out of the box thinking on this. Partnerships, collaborations, if those are on your radar and you have opportunities that you're thinking about, we know that often helps to leverage funding and other resources. This pilot for the Janvrin fund will review requests up to $15,000. While we always prefer applications that leverage organizational dollars, other funding sources, and partnerships, sometimes your organization may have something it's doing within its framework right now that maybe later on will come up with partners or collaboration, so that those can also be considered. We are asking if you are seeding or piloting a brand new project or program, that in your narrative, as you're presenting your idea, that you have explain where you are in the development process of that pilot or that seeding project. And what will it take to launch that? But we also would like to know what your plan for sustainability ongoing for that pilot is if it's successful. We're looking at this pilot as planting the seeds for new ways of thinking about conservation, stewardship, environmental education, partnership, collaboration of our to enjoy and sustain and steward our natural world and its resources. We're particularly interested, as I have said several times, in creative, out-of-the-box, imaginative ideas. I have to say we've looked at other past grants from different organizations, both in our region and from farther afield in other states. All of you have some incredible ideas out there that I know you're percolating over. So we hope maybe that you'll take this opportunity to think about those and take advantage of an opportunity to put that idea forward in this pilot cycle. We're always interested in engaging our youth in programs and projects. That's the next generation of stewards. So any ideas that help incorporate that population into what's going on right now, but thinking for the future is always incredibly important to us. We're obviously, as I've said, always promoting partnerships across a wide and broad spectrum of both constituents, cohorts, and organizations. And we're looking for ideas that are fostering equitable conservation and stewardship. So the definition that we have for equitable conservation and stewardship is included here, as well as the FAQs and other materials that will be available on our website. But what does that really mean? What is it for us? Maybe, and if others have used this and have definitions or examples that they have in mind, please, let us know, because we're seeing this from other organizations. It's like many definitions, it's developing as ideas come forward. But what we're really thinking about is we are all tied to our environment. We are all tied to the land, to the water, how we interact with it, where we live within it. And sometimes those same things have separated us. So some communities have been excluded from certain things through direct interaction or access. So equitable conservation and stewardship and access is rethinking how we interact with our environment, who is involved in that, and how can we get more people of all demographics, all races, economic statuses, and abilities to feel involved, to see themselves as stewards, and to participate in activities that are in our natural world and benefit all of us both physically and mentally. So I've touched on some of this. We sort of broke out some of these Q&As. Once again, creative, out of the box, and imaginative. What do we mean by that? You have great ideas. We would like to know what they are. This is an opportunity to share those ideas and think differently about some fun ways to do your projects and programs. However, this does not mean we will not consider what in the past we've all considered the more traditional conservation, stewardship, or education programs. Those are as necessary, ongoing as any new out-of-the-box thinking. The main goal for any of your ideas is they must meet the purpose of the Janvrin Fund. As I mentioned, when we were just looking at the definition for equitable conservation and stewardship, we know that some people are going, but I still don't get what that means. It's okay. We've been very careful. We don't want to limit your ideas, because we know that there are great ideas. We know that there are things out there that tie in with equitable conservation, stewardship, and this should say, and access, that maybe we haven't thought of as examples. So what we're really saying is think about how you can engage a broad population. Who is it that maybe you think would enjoy participating in your programs or projects and have not maybe felt that they had the access or even knew that they could? How can we get all people, all demographics? So maybe this is a program or a project in partnership with the neurodiverse, with organizations that serve a neurodiverse population. Maybe it's finding ways to do a pollinator pathway and community garden in a more urban setting that could involve youth and adult populations who maybe have never had an opportunity to learn about gardening and how it plays a role in our overall well-being and environmental health. We know COVID has shown how important the opportunity to experience open spaces is to our mental well-being, our sense of community, our family cohesion. So maybe there's some new great ideas out there. Maybe it's partnering on story walks or reviewing sort of access to trails and hikes, and maybe helping groups know that maybe had never known your trail is accessible to them, is out there, and helping them find ways to enjoy it and learn from it. And maybe it's just initiatives for composting to encourage our towns to maybe not utilize landfills and to take better care of our environmental resources and to actually benefit our community gardens or our personal gardens. So we welcome applications for programs and projects that preserve, protect, and steward lands, waterways, habitats, not only for the benefit of the ecosystem, but the benefit, health, and livelihood of our local residents, our communities as a whole. while a standalone are fine, your organization has an idea that it's been working on and this is an opportunity to move it forward, that's great. If you have an idea that's collaborative in nature, we know resources, both personal resources, meaning individuals, volunteers, staffing, funding resources, material resources. It's hard to gather all those together. Good ideas take a lot of effort and a lot of ideas. So collaborative may help you leverage that whenever possible. That are regional in scope, that are rooted in solution-oriented approaches. You know, where are we looking for long-term? What can you start now that may keep going and maybe can be borrowed by other groups down the road? That can be measured in some sense, that have both a qualitative and a quantitative outcome that you can share with us and with the community at large, and promote positive change. Existing programs, special projects, we will definitely take those under consideration. New initiatives, ideas, possibilities to finally launch something that you've had back there percolating for a long time. General operating that supports your ongoing and programs and projects. We recognize that that's all part of doing what you do to do that project or program that you're offering the community, and maybe even expand on it or find new communities to do it within. And then the capacity building and technical assistance that's required to do this type of work. So some application tips. Many of you who have come through the general information cycles and the application process in the past will recognize some of this. We always reiterate them. When you're thinking about how to present budgets and how to get a sense of what the overall project is, we are requiring for staff review the budget summary sheet that we have. Once again, we don't necessarily need a line just for pencils or just for nails, but don't just say cost of program, single line item, $25,000. We do need to have some sense of how your budget will break down and how the funding will be used. Not only that, but if you're partnering and collaborating, is some of the funding going to be then resourced out to maybe a partner because they're taking a different piece of it? So some clarification on that. It can be done in the narrative on the single line item. In your narratives, again, please be clear about your need and your request for funding. Be specific. Discuss your impact. You can use terminology, obviously, that may be directly related to your area of expertise. But remember, we have community volunteers on our committees. They like to learn a lot, but they also want to just very clearly and concisely understand what it is that you would like to do and how you're going to do that. If you're offering some type of education or community outreach program, we've noticed in past annual processes that sometimes there's an idea of we're going to reach out to the town of Haddam and get them involved and invite them to come and attend. But then there are no details about how that's actually going to be accomplished. So if you are doing a community outreach, please make sure that you explain clearly how you're going to engage the community and encourage them to attend. Acronyms. All of you have probably heard me talk about acronyms. Acronyms are great because we do have character counts in our narratives. However, the first time you use an acronym, it really should be the full term with the acronym in parentheses. So our committee members, and I'll speak for myself for reviewing them, it's often an acronym I'm not familiar with. So I have what it is before you begin using acronyms throughout your narrative. On the impact piece, when it comes time to check the towns where you will see your program or project having a direct impact, if you know for a fact that you will be serving all 15 towns, select all of Middlesex County. If you think it's predominantly the upper county or the lower county, you can select that. But then we do have all 15 towns listed that you can check which ones you see your program or project directly working within. If it's just one town, just check that one town. But if you say all of Middlesex County and you check off all the towns, but then your application only speaks to 3 towns, That's not all of Middlesex County. So please, in the demographic section of the application, only check those towns where you are actually going to be having touch points for your project, not just all of Middlesex County, because it happens to be on there. And again, please proofread, particularly if you're speaking to numbers, either in budget summaries or in the narrative, and what you put on the front page as your request and the total project. That's often where we see some of the biggest errors. They don't match, and then we have to follow up and find out why. Most of you probably landed through the link in our information session on the Janvrin Fund application cycle page, which is where all of the how-tos, the FAQs, the slides, and tomorrow morning, the link to actually launch the application form will be located. If you're new to our website, if you hover over the term nonprofits on the top menu row, just hover over it, you will see this drop-down menu appear, and you can click on the Janvrin Fund application cycle page, and everything will be on that page for you. Please review the FAQ, the application outline document, and the other documents we'll have loaded before you submit. I'm hoping that those will answer any questions that you may have. If they don't, by all means, please email us a question and we're happy to follow up. Applications must be completed on our website. You do not print the application and fill it in by hand. You must submit it via our website. There are required documents, as in past processes, including the budget summary form for our staff review, IRS or other charitable tax status determination letter, and the list of your board members with their professional affiliations. Professional affiliations means, what do they do? Are they a community activist? Are they a CPA? Are they an attorney? Are they an entrepreneur? All of that gets updated in PDF. I can't stress this enough. Our website will not, on this application, accept any other format. No Word, no Excel, JPEG. It must be in a PDF format. Our budget summary form is provided on our website in a Word document that can be downloaded, completed, and then saved as PDF to then upload. If you have any difficulties downloading it, please let me know. Our application, for those that maybe have never completed our application, does not provide a print preview opportunity. You can page back, page forward. We do recommend that you draft your responses in Word, just in case you run into a glitch, or maybe other Word document program, because you can copy and paste into the box. But you can't print preview it. We have looked into that. The platform we use, there is a significant number of registration pieces that would be required in order to do that. So we haven't implemented that yet. We may do that in the future. Once you click submit, you're all done. You've submitted your application. You will receive an email that does contain a PDF of your final application. We also provide of all the documents for you to look at. With the FAQ, we provide an application outline document that gives you every single question on the application. So you can actually use that to begin crafting your responses, particularly if you're partnering with another organization and will be doing it as a team effort. So you don't necessarily have to launch an application and share the link back and forth until you're ready to complete it. At the very last page, as many of you know who have completed an application in the past, we do have an executive director, CEO, board chair attestation to what's included in the application. For those that may have partners or collaborators, we just want to make sure that you have talked with them about not only are you partnering and collaborating on this great idea, but that the Community Foundation does have marketing and PR expectations. We have an evaluation requirement. We have a use of grant funding certification that clearly states that any grant awards must be used for the application as submitted. And we do have a non-discrimination policy that we do expect all of our grantees to read, understand, and adhere to with regard to programs that receive funding. So the very last piece, if you have partners or collaborators, just please make sure that you share all of that information with them and let them know that you will be listing them because that they are certifying that they have gotten it and they are right on board with it and they're very excited to partner with you. That'll be the last piece. If you have questions on that, please let me know. For those that may not have partners on your application, you do not need to complete this final very last box on the application. So this is my big general reminder, because this happens every time. So I have actually put it into the information slides in the hopes that maybe it will help. We have an opportunity in the application to save and continue later. So when you're on the application form at the bottom, it's going to be next page. If you're on page 2, it'll be previous page. It'll be, once you get to the very end, it'll be submit. But there is a button that says save and finish later. When you click that, you get this information right here. This pops up on your screen. We strongly, I cannot encourage you enough to do this. This HTTPS link right here in blue in the middle of the page that says copy this first. You can highlight that and copy it. You can save it in a Word document. You can email it to yourself, to someone else. You can put it in a sticky note on your computer or iPad screen. Before you click send link, I cannot stress, please copy this link. And here's why. Sometimes we have found if there is a high level of use going on in the internet sphere, whether it's on our server or your server or some server in between, there is a delay to get the email that includes this link for you. I can't stress this enough. If you have an application in process, we at the Community Foundation cannot see it. It is on a temporary server. It is not on our server. We can't see it. We can't access it. We cannot get this link for you. Please save the link and then put your email in, send yourself the link. You will get an email that will also come. But the system is specifically set up to actually tell you what the link is going to be before you hit send, so you can also copy it. So we really encourage that. Also, this just happened with an evaluation. The link expires after 30 days. So don't start it now if you think that it's going to be more than 30 days, which it won't be because we've done it so it's under 30 days. But for future or for your evaluations, the temporary links only last for 30 days. And at that point, it disappears. We can't get it back. Incomplete applications will not be reviewed. We will reach out to you and say thank you, but we can't review this. So please be sure that everything required on the application is submitted. You will receive an email with a copy of the final application after you click submission periodically. And please make sure all of these things come from our email address that is info, I-N-F-O, at middlesexcountycf.org. Please make sure you whitelist that or check your junk mail periodically in case you don't, and that's where these things end up. But you will get a final copy via email. We are not requiring a submission of a hard copy with attachments and an original signature. We have stopped doing that unless there are discrepancies or problems with your electronically submitted application. If that occurs, we will reach out to you. If you do not receive the email with your final submission after about 3 or 4 business days, please send me an email and we will forward a copy because it comes into us, obviously. We may have follow-up questions. On the last page of the application, we ask for the executive's information and the contact person to contact with questions or follow-up items on the application. So that's the person we will reach out to if we need any, if we have any follow-up questions or need further information. Here's the timeline. It's launching a little early, as I said, from our general competitive cycle, but it is all wrapped into the competitive cycle. But we're going to push this one through a little bit earlier than the general cycle timeline. So the pilot launches today with this information session. The page is live. We are continuing today to upload the FAQ, the application overview, and those other PDF items that are just to help answer questions. But we will not launch the application form itself until tomorrow morning because one, we're testing it, make sure it works for you, but two, there may be questions today that we hadn't thought of, and we want to take a look at it and make sure it's as good to go as possible. Applications are due at 4 p.m. on August 11th. Again, they must be submitted by our website. They cannot be submitted in hard copy handwritten. Our Janvrin committee will begin their review process about a week later after we've gone through them and made sure everything is complete. So sometime in early September, or late August, early September, if we have follow-up, you may hear from us. If you don't hear from us, it's okay. Don't panic. It means we didn't have any major follow-up or need for further information. But if so, please keep an eye on your emails, because that follow-up does come up through email, and we do request that responses be sent so that we can easily distribute them. The committees will then make their final recommendations in October, and those recommendations will be presented to our board of directors in their October meeting. And then we'll let everyone know the status of their applications in November. Oops. So we appreciate all you do. We're very excited for this. So I am going to, we will share the PowerPoint slides as well. And you have that to refer back to as well. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And so if there are questions, you can either use the raise hand option. You can put them in the chat. Mary's going to help me with that. Mary, did we have any questions come through during the presentation?
Not through the chat yet, no.
Okay, all right. Questions, something that didn't make sense. That was a lot of information to come out. Wham! Right? So that's one reason. Yes, Scott.
Do you distribute more than one $15,000 grant per sorry, I forgot the word already.
Oh, per
Session?
cycle?
Cycle, thank you.
Yes, no, that's a very good question. You're right, that wasn't clear. Well, we always tell everyone we have a finite amount of funding, but yes, there is possibility of several applicants receiving awards in this cycle. So yeah, this is not an everybody applies and there's only one to give out. So
Thayer, can you hear me now? Am I muted?
I can. Hi, Judy.
I know.
Yay!
I know. Yeah. Bye-bye. And I heard the whole thing. Yay. Question, because I was really picking up on the school thing, education thing and the child thing. There are programs that now with schools fortunately getting going want to, I think through Garden Club and others, they want to include school systems, or at least I've been hearing that. How does that have to come, let's say, from the outside and be given to school systems? Or I mean, I don't imagine school systems apply. So I mean, that's governmental. What is the connection there that can be made with things that could go on within classrooms?
Judy, that is a phenomenal question. Thank you so much for asking that, because I did, as I was going through, I realized that I had not included that piece. So let's start with, first of all, the Community Foundation is able to make grants to 501c3 organizations as determined by the IRS, and 170B1s, which could be school districts, park and rec departments. We can even make grants to religious organizations as long as that is for secular purposes, right? So we do get requests either from school districts, but actually more so, and I'm going to use Lucy, everyone outside. I'm going to do a hypothetical and I'm going to pick on Lucy because I happen to have seen her come on and she's a perfect example with her organization, everyone outside. Could also be a garden club that is a 501c3. That's the lead organization. They have a great idea. They have a classroom lined up. It is something that is not paid for in a school budget, that it must be done in partnership with an outside organization because the class really wants to do it, but the school budget just is maxed out. There's no room for it. So the organization actually goes out, finds the grants to help pay for it. They design curriculum that meet the educational curriculum and encourage the youth, and they partner on it. Those are definitely acceptable partnerships and applications. We know the school system in the past, and we will continue in the general funding, as many of you know, have done school partner programs. We do require letters of support from the schools to make sure they really understand what it's doing to come in. That might be a follow-up thing, because we know right now that you might catch the superintendent maybe a couple of days a week or the principal to follow up, but you should have already had that conversation. So if you are proposing something that is in partnership with a class or a school, you may not have all of the documentation lined up, but it can't, I want to strongly say this. It can't be that you have this great idea, but you don't have a school to partner with yet, right? Because they have already done their planning. Maybe they're looking though for planning in April of next year. This is the cycle to do it, but you want to make sure that you have those partners lined up, not that you're going to surprise them with it after you've already got it involved, because that will be one of the questions that we confirm with you, is to make sure that yes, they need this. Yes, the teacher is all excited to incorporate this into their curriculum. The school is all ready to help with getting the students there, and it's not just sort of a vague idea you'd like to launch on that.
Thanks.
We did receive a question through the chat.
Okay.
And the question is, if your project will happen in spring and summer 2023, should you apply in fall or spring cycle?
So that's a really good question. So the second application cycle, that spring cycle, will launch late February, early March, with probably late February with a late March deadline. I'm still backing into that part of the calendar. So that funding wouldn't actually be available until, say, July of next year for that second cycle. So if you have a program that you're thinking about doing in, say, April, May, or June, this is the cycle to apply in. Because the second cycle of our annual process will be ongoing at that time. And what we do not allow is back paying expenses that have already been incurred. These are forward-looking applications, forward-looking budget projections, and forward-looking expenses to be incurred. You may not use our grant funding to pay for things that have already happened.
Jill, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I am Middletown Public Schools. I'm the coordinator of extended learning. And if there's anybody out there that has a project and they want a school, get in touch with me because I will, we would love to partner with people. Lucy, I've worked with her through the classrooms, but I also work with everybody outside in our after school programs. And we love when people come in and have ideas and stuff to work with. And I'd be the person to talk to. So
thank you for that, Jill. And that is a perfect, actually, you lead into one thing that I noticed that got sent to me just a little bit of as I was getting ready to launch this. So we have had a question in order to network and make new friends. If we could send out the list of attendees, organizations and contact information in case someone saw someone here they'd like to get to know a little bit better and see if maybe in the future there's not a great way to do that. So what I am going to ask all of you is, if you are not comfortable with that information being shared just with this group, to please email either Mary or myself, and we will remove you and respect that and find out if someone, or we may just leave your organization, and if someone wants to learn more, we can help initiate an email. But if you're okay with us sharing the list among the group so you can start making new friends and possibly come up with some new brainstorming partners out there, we're happy to do that, but we respect your privacy and do not want to include anyone that may otherwise not wish to be included. You don't have to do it right away. We'll hold off until probably early next week to send that list out, so that gives you some time to think about it or get some clarification. So, Mary, other questions? I haven't.
We did just receive. Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry.
We did.
There's clearly not, I mean, it's not, there's no match requirement, I take it, but are you looking for a sort of a de facto match? Are you looking for others, support that's coming in? Is that a positive?
That's a great question, Kathy. Thank you so much. So, do we prefer when our grant helps leverage other funding? Sure, because it means there's more to do. Do we prefer sometimes, do we like to see an organization actually committing some funding or some budget operations money that they already have in place? Yes. However, if it's something where if you're asking for 10,000 and the total cost of the program is 10,000, we do ask that you provide an explanation of why. Why are we the only funder? Why are we being looked to pay for the whole project? Doesn't mean a no, it doesn't mean a yes, but we want to understand why we would be the only funder and why there is no other funding available. Why are we expected to give or asked to give a grant that would pay for the whole thing?
Some of you have been kind enough in the past with our general cycle to include in your budget if you've applied for other grants and they're pending. So I would encourage you to include that as well.
And there is a place, thank you, Cynthia, for reminding me, on the budget summary, for those that aren't familiar with it, it's very simple and clear. There's a section for expenses. There's a section for soft or in kind, because maybe once you add in, maybe you've got a consultant or an educator that's volunteering their expertise and their knowledge, but they know how much it would cost if they were asking you to pay for it, but they're not going to make you pay for it. They think it's a great idea and they're going to help do that. And that's a softer in-kind cost. And then there's a section for any other funding, whether it's outside grants or funding or donations from donors. We don't want individual donor names. I can't stress this enough. Other grants you're applying for, we like to know that, because I am nosy and I'm the first to admit that. But please do not list your individual private donors. That's none of our business. We respect their privacy on that. You can just say donations. So let's see, I saw someone, someone else, Michael asked, and Bob had from Essex had also emailed me this question. Is there a duration that funding must be used? 1 year, for example. So just like with grants received through our prior annual process, we don't necessarily look for a project to take 10 years to complete, but maybe it does. There's no requirement. It must be used. Funding must be used within 6 months of receiving the award, or 1 year. However, and for those that have outstanding grant award, in-process grant awards from last cycle, right, from last year's competitive cycle, if you haven't finished that project, you still need to submit an interim evaluation. If you have finished that project and have not submitted your final evaluation, that is required by August 11th if you choose to apply during this process. But it's the same thing for grant awards going forward. Maybe it might take 18 months to do one. We have a process to request interim updates and evaluations to find out if you're having maybe you're running into some obstacles. We might be able to help brainstorm with that, as well as just to keep things going. So no, it does not necessarily have to be completed within, say, 6 months or 1 year. But we also do monitor through interims, because if it's going on 2 or 3 years, that might be, we may need to check in and find out what real obstacles have fallen in the way to delay a project or a program from being implemented. So I just got a really good question, wanting to know asking for clarification about grant funding for individuals versus to an organization. So as I mentioned in the presentation, we do not award grants to individuals, meaning Joy Smith might want to do a private composting project in her backyard. She cannot apply to us. She's not a tax exempt entity, right? However, that doesn't mean that maybe you're working on developing a program and you need to hire someone with special expertise to be part of your team as a contractor or consultant. You're the applicant, right? How you need to use that grant funding, it will be defined in what it is that you're accomplishing and who you need to bring in and how you need to use your resources to bring that program off. So it's what we do when we say not to individuals, we mean the grant funding must go to a tax exempt entity that has been awarded the grant. We just can't take applications from individuals who are not tax exempt entities. So I got a question about an in-process project. So a project that is in process has been launched, but throughout the project, they're still searching for funding. I think on that one, I would encourage, if that's the case, if it's in process and it's because you had problems finding funding, I would encourage you to schedule a time to talk with either Cynthia. I'm putting Cynthia on the spot here. Apologies, Cynthia, but I'm on vacation next week. So schedule an appointment to have a quick conversation, because there are questions that are involved in that in order to determine what the project is, where you are in the process, and what the obstacles may have been that you're searching for funding. It's not that you can't, I just don't want to steer you wrong. And that type of question really has to do with what's going on and what's happened up to this point and where it's going forward. So we'll try to field that. Cynthia,
what do you the context, and I'm happy to take any calls.
Yeah.
You know, you all know our phone number, right? You know how to reach us.
And I knew Cynthia would say, yes, she's always happy to, but I forgot to mention to her that I was going to throw her out there that as a reminder on this. And I always like to give people a heads up if I'm going to throw them out in a spotlight. So, okay. All right. Other questions at this point? Anything I've missed? Okay. You're all going to leave. And all of a sudden you're going to think of 3 questions you wish you'd asked, right? Darn. It's very simple. Send an email. We'll keep bringing them together. We'll keep updating our FAQ throughout. We'll send out emails if somebody comes up with a question that everybody would probably, say, oh, I wish I'd asked that. So we're happy to field those questions. So thank you all for being here. It was really great to see everyone.
I just have one other comment. You need to know that you're our partners in this pilot. While we've really researched other community foundations and other funders in this, we know we don't have all the answers. So please feel very comfortable to, 1, ask questions, 2, offer suggestions. We strive for excellence, not necessarily perfection. And your brains are so good and you're the experts in your field. So please, we encourage you to say, hey, this isn't working, or this, I've heard about this kind of thing. We really, really welcome that.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you soon.
Stay cool.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks much.
Thanks there.
Thank you. Thanks.